And according to the World Health Organization, they define mental health as a state of well-being. And when we look at a state of well-being, we are looking at not three areas of life. We're looking at an individual, we are looking at your potential, we are looking at your ability to contribute to the society, which is your purpose, and also by this contributing, it means that you're fruitful. So according to World Health Organization, mental health is that state of well-being in which all individuals realize their potential. So you and me realizing our potential, and not just realizing it, that ability to cope with normal life stresses. And despite even these stresses, we are able to work productively, fruitfully, and contribute to the community. So maybe as we begin this conversation, just pose a question to yourself and think, what do I think about my mental health as of today? Am I able to contribute to the society despite the normal stresses, day-to-day hassles of life? Am I able to rise and see my potential and use it to the fullest that I can never be? So we define mental health. So mental health, we have good mental health and we have poor mental health. Are you able to follow my slides? I don't know if they're improving.
Apologies, Shalom. We are not
Maybe.
projecting anything.
I'm not projecting.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And
We
my
thought you
slides
are
are
on
just
introduction only, but I see you are not.
okay. Okay. Oh my goodness. I really, really apologize.
Maybe from what you had as a download,
Yeah.
open that
Uh-huh.
and share that one.
Because
Yes.
that's what I've been using. Oh, okay. Let me just try
Yeah.
to adjust
Maybe
and
you
work
need
on
to
that.
share and share, then share
Mhm.
now what you are
Okay.
displaying. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let me try to set up. Hmm. Okay, 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 okay. Share. And share tree. What of now?
Try scrolling. I will confirm.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because we are on the first page. Yeah.
Page. What of now?
Yeah.
I'm trying. You can
Though it's
see.
still not full screen, but now we can see it.
Okay, let me see. Let me
Yes.
see if I can adjust that. Uh-huh. Yeah. Pardon?
I think you can proceed from there because at least it's scrolling down. Only that it's not full page displaying.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me stop sharing.
You can confirm resharing.
It's becoming a challenge. Yeah, it's becoming a challenge to do so.
Okay, maybe then you can proceed with what you had displayed, because at least something was legible as you explained to.
What of now?
Better.
Better?
That's okay.
Is it
Yeah,
now cool?
yeah.
I can use this.
You can use that now.
Okay. Okay. Apologies. So I had just tried to look to explain what mental health is, um, according to World Health Organization. So I was just going ahead to talk about good mental health. Are you able to see this one? This
Now, okay.
That's okay.
Proceed. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, great. So we defined mental health. So after being able to, so we defined it as that ability of an individual to realize their own potential and cope with normal life stresses, and thus you're able to work productively and fruitfully and make a contribution to the community. So after we define that, then we go ahead to look at good and poor mental health. So, good mental health, again, according to the World Health Organization, is that now when you're able to cope with the normal stresses of life and work productively, realizing your potential and contributing to the community. So you see, it picks the details about mental health. So now, poor mental health is now the opposite of what good mental health is. So this is when one finds okay. So poor mental health has the quality improved of the slides. Is it full screen now?
You can proceed.
Okay.
I'll put it on presenter mode.
Yes.
Okay. Then let's just work with this then. So poor mental health is when one finds it difficult to manage how they think, how they feel, how they act with respect to daily stresses. Like I think right now I'm also beginning to get a little bit stressed up because the presentation is a bit challenging. So again, I'm also using this to help me. Yeah. So poor mental health is when one is unable to manage how they think, how they feel, how they act with respect to daily stresses of life, such as frustrations and disappointments. And I think this now poses a question to us all. There are times when we are able to manage daily hassles like traffic or being behind on assignments, and sometimes we are able to take a break and tell ourselves it's okay, tomorrow may be better, or I'll put in effort tomorrow to improve on it. But there are days when just a little frustration can really overwhelm you. So that just shows you that maybe I'm having trouble with my mental health, and it's time for me to do something about it. So stress. So stress is basically the body's physical and emotional reaction to a demand or a threat. It could be perceived and it could be even existing at that particular time. So we can define stress as anything that is challenging your reaction and your demand to a threat. It could be traffic, it could be an assignment, it can be a relationship, it can be maybe even you being unable to maybe stick to a routine and do well in that. So that can be defined as as stress. So there are different types of stress.
Keep scrolling down
Yeah,
as you keep scrolling down as you move on.
as I
We
move.
are still, yes, yes, we are still at number 5.
Okay.
I think there's a way you can be able to put it in presenter mode.
In
If you check at
presenter
the bottom of the page, there are some icons.
Yes, there are.
No, yes. If you see the one that is
Can you
just point,
now?
there's one that's next to that percentage of zoom.
where it's showing 60% zooming,
Yes.
notes, comments down there.
So the last icon,
The last one.
just point.
Uh-huh. That's 5. So 6.
Okay.
6. That one.
No, at the bottom of your screen,
Uh-huh.
there's a way you can be able to turn this from to presenter mode. Can you see notes?
Yes, I can.
The next one, comments.
Yes,
Then the
I
next
see.
icon.
Uh-huh.
Now go to the next, actually the last one before that bar, the percentage bar. You just click on it once, it will. Can you hover your mouse if you can?
Are you able to see the screen that I am? Huh. Okay.
You
I can't
have
be able
already
to see.
shared
Put
Yes,
it in
Peter.
PowerPoint format. Mwalimu aiweke in PowerPoint format.
Oh my.
Call somebody wherever you are to assist
So
you.
up there,
Yes,
up there also, there are areas where there is file and
Sasa
slideshow.
ameacha.
Okay, sure.
Haya, akuwe kama mwalimu wa redio sasa, manake mwalimu wa TV ameshirikana. Ko tuko masikio.
Okay. Okay. Eh. Yeah.
Paula, maybe you can ask somebody alongside you.
I
Kina
am actually
Patricia,
doing that.
seems for you.
What of now?
Now just hover your mouse to the bottom of the page.
Okay.
There's an icon there which when you hover over, you will see slide. I think slideshow.
Because this one's not giving me that option.
Stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Don't disappear.
Alternatively, can I send it
Yes.
to one of you to help me do that?
Yes, let me type, then you just send it.
Yeah, give me your email. I send it to you. You help me do that.
It's typed under the charts, ikuhunya@aal.co.ke. Seems not yet received, but Shalom can continue. Maybe we just reason. There is also another email shared, pigakinya@ar.co.ke. And sorry for that. At least it also trains us on how to manage our mental health issues during times of stress that we shall continue. Shalom, you are here? Shalom, or any other Chilomo member. I believe you have seen the email shared under the chat, so you can share.
Okay, I am.
Elijah, you can continue the audio.
Shalom, we are suggesting you just continue with the audio without visual, so that in part of time, so that it doesn't give you unnecessary delays.
Okay. So as I continue sharing this, so I was talking about stress and types of stress. Okay, so we have three types of stress. We have we have acute stress, we have episodic stress, and we also have chronic stress. Now, acute stress is a short term kind of stress that is recent and environmental. There are environmental factors that are contributing to this stress. Now, an acute stress is as we say, short term. So it's as simple as, like, right now, the way we are trying to log into this discussion, and we are having a bit of challenges. It's a short term stress, and with time, it will wear off when we're able to at least share it. So that's acute stress. And then we have episodic one. Now, episodic is a series of stressful events that are triggered one after another. Like, for example, maybe if I use the example of now, well, the presentation is challenging, and then maybe my network begins to hang, and then maybe there's pressure here and there. So it is episodic. There's one stress that is contributing to another stress and to another, and it becomes like an episode. And then now we have chronic stress, is when now this stress has graduated to a more long-term and more, we'd say, it will last maybe a longer period of time. And as I said, stress is something, is a reaction to a demand or a threat that is perceived or existing at that particular time. So a chronic stress is something that has been for a while challenging your ability to cope, challenging your ability to adjust to this threat. So we term that as a chronic stress. So if we look at it and we go back to our definition of what mental health is, so stress can really challenge our ability to cope to demands and even adjust to them. So if I bring it as a conversation now, do you feel like there's a relationship between stress and mental illness? Maybe I just ask one person to volunteer and just tell me, do you feel like there would be a relationship between stress and mental illness? In just like a second or two. Yeah?
A question has been posed.
Yeah.
So we need
Yes.
one of us
Yes.
to respond
Yeah.
other than myself.
Yes. As much as it's a challenge for us to follow the presentation, yeah, we can make it a bit of a discussion. So in your opinion, would you say that there's a relationship between stress and mental illness?
And one can also type, we can
Yeah.
see that.
Yes. I see Bethel has actually confirmed that stress is temporary. Well, mental health takes time. Okay. So I don't know, does that leave it as yes, there's a
Like
relationship?
somebody, Samson, who also wants to respond.
Okay. Sir, yes. Permission granted.
Shalom, I believe when your stress level become overwhelming
Uh-huh.
and stay for long or prolong for long,
Mm-hmm.
there's a high risk of mental health problems,
Mm-hmm.
which may also lead to a medical problem as well, because
That's right.
long-term stress basically is a mental health issue,
Uh-huh.
which now include maybe something with depression and anxiety and the likes, which causes, I think, sleeping problems,
Mm-hmm.
fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
and muscle tension, if I'm not wrong.
Ah, nice. Looks
Yes.
like you have a Kamwa Kenya somewhere. You've even stated some of the symptoms and the signs. So I think that gives us the answer that yes, from the way Branson, yeah, is trying to bring it out that yes, there is a relationship between stress and mental illness. So we see this because stress can impact not just the here and the now. If it proceeds, you see, we've defined, like, we have three types. We have the acute, episodic, and the chronic one. So if it graduates to an episodic kind of stress, of course it will challenge your ability to cope, it will challenge your ability to respond, even using the potentials that you have. So yes, the answer is yes, there is a relationship between stress and mental illness. And how do we tell? Because as we've seen, there are even some signs and symptoms. So some signs and symptoms of stress, it could be your body, can be your mind, can be your emotions, and also your behavior. Those are four areas of our lives. So our body, the body, generally we are looking at headaches, we are looking at the physical, the way you feel, and the way now it impacts the way you even express. So for example, to the body, you may begin to experience something like fatigue, just that fatigue that never ends. It's Friday, you will go through a weekend, then Monday comes and you're still not motivated, you're still exhausted. Possibly it's an episodic kind of stress that you're going through, and it is affecting your ability to cope. Maybe you're having headaches that just never go away. You're taking water, you're trying to take rest, but still not going away because the perceived threat is still existing and has not been taken care of. Maybe to your mind, you begin to worry. Of course, you'll worry. You'll begin to feel a bit negative about the way things are going, about how you're able to cope, and then it affects, when we look at mental health, we're looking at your behavior, we're looking to also to the internal and the external processes. So the way you think affects the way you feel. And if it affects the way you feel, then it affects your behavior. So you see how now stress is interrelated. It may just be a perceived threat to you, but it tends to affect your mind, your emotions, and your behavior. So if we see to your emotions, maybe you may begin to feel a bit irritable, so easy to get to call it what, your a very simple thing can really upset you or can really make you overly excited, and it's because of just the inability, your brain is unable to maybe work in a moderate kind of way, and it reflects through the emotions that you give out. Maybe you lose confidence because there's this thing that you need to do, and now you're unable to do it because you have all these things running in your mind. And then as we look at you, we observe some changes. If you look at me, you observe some changes to my behavior, that is. And maybe sometimes you find yourself trying to cope with this stress, and in the process, you maybe begin to become restless. And he thought Brasson, yeah, also mentioned you're not able to sleep. So if you're not able to sleep, then that means you're not getting enough rest. And when you're not getting enough rest, then that means you're going to be a bit irritable or even more. And sometimes you may find yourself trying to do something to help you manage this stress. So you may result into substance abuse, or maybe just to help you calm and relax. Yeah, unaenda kidogo, unasema mbili kidogo tu za kutuliza hii stress, yeah. And unfortunately, it graduates into something else, and it becomes now more of a behavioral kind of impact, and we can all stem it back to just stress, you see. So stress can really, really affect our way of coping and our way of even feeling, and just our general well-being. So some of the causes of stress, I think I just post it back to us as a question. Some of the causes of stress that you can think of very quickly. We just mentioned them. Someone, a volunteer? Causes of stress.
Lack of finance.
Oh, nice. Lack of finance.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Another that you can think of?
Family issues.
Family issues on matters relationships. Very good. Any other? Maybe look at it from an all-round perspective. We have to you as an individual, to the society around you, even occupational, yeah, or school, some of the stressing factors.
Pressure at work.
Pressure at work. Very, very good. Thank you so much. Any other before I close it? Okay, thank you. So some causes of
The
stress,
chat is
I
also
think.
asking.
Elijah.
We have lost you. Shalom. Sorry, it seems we have lost Shalom. Let me try getting through again.
Expectations. Oh, we're back. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
We lost you at
Able
some
to hear
point,
me?
but welcome back.
Okay, network. Okay, So we are still talking about causes of stress, and I see some of them at the comment section. We have loss of a loved one, divorce, yeah, pressure at work, unfulfilled expectations, exams also, separation from parents, yeah, work environment. Yes, these are external, and some of them are also internal causes of stress. So in my presentation, I have like three. We have major life changes.
Confirm you can now see it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I
so
have
much.
displayed it. Confirm.
Yes, I can see it. I can see it. I
Thank
can
you.
see it. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we are back. So we have, yeah, we are on external causes of stress. So we have major life changes, okay, like pandemics, financial problems, new job, being too busy. Yeah, when you're trying to get a few things done and it's a bit hectic for you, it can be a major life change. Yeah, loss of a relative, because this means that a part of you has been taken, and the reality of you may not be able to have them around also can bring you stress, and it's a major life change. We have family issues like relationship difficulties. We have domestic violence, children birth. As much as we know, it may not be at stress to every other person, but it can be very personal, yeah, especially when you've not planned or tried to get prepared for it. So it could be organizational on the side of work, when you're having too many assignments, maybe that you're unable to finish on time. When also some things like the way we relate with our co-workers, sometimes you may find yourself discriminated. Yeah, I think from that slide you're able to see it. Matters like discrimination, yeah, matters like harassment, yeah, it can really become a very stressful factor to us. So the next slide talks about some of the signs and symptoms of stress, which I had tried to like bring to our perspective. Yeah, like to the now into four. We have the body, the mind, the emotions, and the behavior. That's slide number 10. Yeah, no. So some of them symptoms are there. So I was talking about maybe when you're having this headache that just never leaves, you're unable to sleep well, and now as a result, maybe you feel a little irritable from time to time. And as a behavioral, then you may result into something that helps you cope. So for some of us, we may find ourselves trying to maybe find an external thing to help us release this stress, and it may actually end up as an addiction. So if it ends up as an addiction, or if it ends up as a behavioral problem, then you remember we said there's a relationship between stress and mental health. So when this stress has really become so overwhelming for you, and we have been able to trace it back, and we can see there's a change to the way you are, to the way you behave, to the way you're even interacting with others, then now we may begin to look at it and think, okay, does it meet the criteria of possibly an illness? Does it meet the criteria of possibly at something that may need to be looked at in depth? And that's when we go to the next slide, where we're talking about mental disorders. Okay, so if we say that there's a relationship, then we are able to look at mental disorders, because mental disorders, basically we are talking about conditions, a range of conditions, that affect our mood, our thinking, and our behavior. Okay, and you remember we said good mental health and poor mental health, how you can be able to tell it. So generally, a mental disorder, how do you even tell that this is a mental disorder and not distress, or not just a behavioral problem? So they are characterized by a combination of perception. Perception is our understanding and interpretation of the environment, our behavior, and abnormal thoughts. So we are saying mental disorders characterized by a combination of perceptual, behavioral, and abnormal thoughts patterns that cannot be attributed maybe to a particular culture or maybe, like, say, an environmental factor. And some of them include very simple ones that we know: depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. Maybe we can look into them in maybe as we presentation continues. So when we talk about mental disorders, then that means there must be a cause that that can attribute you to a mental disorder, or a factor that can actually put you in a place where you're prone to get like one. So we say causes of mental illnesses. For example, genes and family history. I think this one, maybe if we just ask ourselves as we grow up and we interact with other people, sometimes when you talk about a particular society or family, you see a person behaving in a certain character and you say kwao huwa wanakuwa hivyo, kwao huwa wanakuwa na ugonjwa aina fulani, yeah. Or maybe we look at it and you say, that's not new. This person usually behaves in this particular way. And it's probably a gene that you've inherited from a family history. Yeah, I think that one becomes more the way we'd say medical conditions like asthma or maybe say cancer. Sometimes you're told you can trace, if you can trace it in your family history, then you need to take a little extra caution. So if you're able to tell that some of these mental conditions have been existing in your family, there's a possibility you may be exposed to getting it, but does not necessarily mean that you will actually get it. Okay, there are things you may do, or it may remain dormant in your life, unless now we go to the second cause, a life experience such as a stress or a history of abuse. Now these factors can bring up an illness that was pre-existing that you didn't know, can actually bring out these symptoms, and now you're able to see that actually I may have a mental illness. Yeah. Extreme circumstances such as disasters like the past year that has ended, when we have COVID, we still have it around with us, but we've seen COVID, how it has affected some of the way we adapt, the way we cope with things. And as a result, yeah, some people have come up with anxiety issues or depression and some like that. So circumstances such as pandemics or disasters, biological factors such as chemical imbalances in the brain. So we know for some people, they are naturally having physiological issues that are going on. So a little stressing factor can be taken to extreme. Like sometimes you find a very simple situation, we all get very anxious when you're about to do maybe a presentation or talk in front of people. But there are people who they are unable to even move past that. So you find them having anxiety because of a chemical imbalance that is in the brain. But when you come to hospital seeking help, now we sometimes after the psychiatrist has evaluated you, they're able to tell, maybe let's look at if there is another factor that can attribute to why this person is actually coming with these symptoms, so that you're able to rule out if there's a chemical imbalance in the brain or it's just other factors. Yeah. Alcohol or recreational drugs. Yeah. Sometimes we talk about substance use disorders, alcohol use disorders. Because you may start it as a very simple thing, maybe just to relax, maybe just to cope. But as a result, it ends up becoming an illness. You're unable to function without it. And sometimes it may induce a mental illness. For example, a substance-induced psychosis. Yeah. Where this person was functioning well, and then all of a sudden you begin to see them behaving in a very particular way that is not normal, yeah, to the way they used to. And now it's as a result of using substances. A serious medical condition like cancer, yeah, when a cancer is a terminal illness, so can be a terminal illness. Even as you get treatment, sometimes you may not really if you're declared free, you may really have to come to still do tests from time to time. So even just living with the fact that you're having a condition that is going to challenge your ability to cope, going to challenge your ability to even live life the way you used to live as a normal, of course you get challenges, and it may result into a mental illness. A few friends and feeling lonely or isolated. Yeah, maybe it may not really be clear how that can happen, but sometimes isolation can really cause some mental issues. I think we saw that when COVID came, how it really affected the way we adapted to life. It really affected some of us. The ability to not be able around people, it can really pose as an impact to you. So causes of mental health, I think we've tried to break it down so you're able to even look back and see if you can attribute to something that you can maybe be careful about. So maybe we go to, how do you know you have a symptom of a mental illness? So after we've said all these things, so how do you know you have a mental illness? So for you to be able to recognize a behavior as abnormal and therefore an illness, it has to satisfy a particular criteria. I was trying to explain that, so that we don't just say you have anxiety, but then you don't meet the criteria of anxiety. So when you come to a mental health hospital, you're helped by a psychiatrist and a psychologist, so that you're able to determine, is it that you're just distressed? Yeah, is it that you're just unable to cope with that challenge at that particular time, so it's causing you distress? So we wouldn't just say you're anxious, you have an anxiety problem, when it's actually the environment that you're in. We are looking at deviance. When we compare, maybe we are looking at there's a particular way, there's a culture that behaves in a particular way, or a family that can behave in a particular way. So if we compare you to another person and we think, this one is on the extreme, then we just say, maybe it's just deviance. Danger. When there's a perceived threat, of course, it challenges the way you react at that particular time. So we wouldn't just conclude that you have a mental illness when actually it's just that the environment is posing a danger to you. Dysfunction at work, at or family or personal level. Maybe you're having an illness at that particular time, and it's affecting the way you perform at work. Maybe we mentioned some external causes of stress, like loss of a loved one, or maybe it's a relationship that is not working out, or your business is not working out, and it is causing you a dysfunction. So it's a temporary kind of a stressing factor to you. So we wouldn't just say you have a mental illness, when basically we can attribute that to a dysfunction in a way that you used to handle things. And then the last one, we have cultural appropriateness. So that's what I was trying to mention, where you compare maybe to us, even let me not use examples, but from where I come from, when we are mourning, we really like to go deep and have conversations with this person who has passed on, and just as a way of getting closure. And for another culture, that may not be a way to go. So if you're seen hanging around the body of a person, a deceased person, hey, people may think this one is now beginning to behave weirdly. So if we cannot explain it as a cultural thing, then now we may begin to look at it and say, maybe we should explore and look at it if it's actually a mental illness, because it's not explainable by culture. Okay, so how do you tell after you have seen all these symptoms? Yeah, and now you're able to tell that maybe there is more to what we see. So some signs and symptoms, maybe at work you begin to become withdrawn, you are isolating yourself, you are having a challenge on meeting deadlines, you're late to work. Someone who used to be very early and on time is now beginning to have a challenge even just being to work on time. Motivation is gone, unable to even go through, maybe we call it inappropriate reactions, and strained relationships as a result, where you're not you expect someone to behave in a particular way, but now they are behaving in a very odd way, and you're able to tell, maybe John is not okay. Maybe they've added a little weight, maybe they look more tired because maybe they are not sleeping well, and they are more irritable because they are more stressed. Then you can be able to say, maybe this person is not doing okay. Yeah. So some signs and symptoms that you can be able to tell even at home with your friends, and you're able to tell maybe they are going through a hard time, and it might actually maybe become an illness as a result. Yeah, maybe like depression or anxiety, something. Yeah. So maybe, so when you've seen these signs and symptoms, then you come to maybe a place like Chiroma, where we're able when you go to a hospital in short, we can be able to explain what it could be. So we go to types of mental illness. Yeah. So after we've presented with these signs and symptoms, so you come to hospital and it's supposed to meet a criteria. So this criteria helps you to determine what illness it is. So some of the types, we have anxiety, we have mood disorders, we have psychotic disorders, we have personality disorders, we have developmental disorders like ADHD, like autism, we have eating disorders like bulimia, bulimia, post-traumatic stress disorder, which occurs a lot when there is a trauma that you've been exposed to, and then it causes stress to you, and now as a result of coping, you may find yourself developing a disorder. Impulse control disorders, yeah. Maybe we could read more into it, yeah. So a very simple statistic, yeah, of, you remember we said there's a relationship between stress and mental health. So statistics, there have been researches here and there to determine how much mental disorders exist even in a midst of us. So this is a research, I think, for around 2016, not after, around there, before COVID, yeah, where it shows us that people with mental or substance use disorders can be attributed to 11 to 18% of the population. That means 970 million. So in a population, if right now we are, I don't know the recent statistics, so it means 970 million people have an existing mental illness, which is a very, very high population. Mental and also substance use, okay? And if we take away from that statistic, 107 million, which attributes to 6.5% of the population, have an alcohol use problem. So your drinking is just, or my drinking is not just normal drinking, it's actually meeting a criteria of a disorder. And drug use disorder, 71 million. Okay, so a study on the psychological effects of continued combat exposure and of repeated deployments in the UK, yeah, armed forces found a high prevalence of PTSD at 4%. So this one was done more towards people who are working for combat, yeah. PTSD at 4%, and now PTSD has been broadened because even adverse childhood experiences can cause one to have PTSD. A challenging situation can actually cause you to have PTSD. So if you put it at 4%, and symptoms of common mental disorders at 13%, and alcohol misuse as well. So you see, prevalence of mental health disorders is very, very high. So it's really good for us to be able to bring up a conversation where people are able to talk about challenges. Yeah, si tu kupiga sherehe. Sometimes, we are doing it because we are trying to mask some few things, and it's actually an illness. Yeah. So coming out and seeking help. So maybe we can see we have depression, we have anxiety, we have substance use. So maybe we look at symptoms of depression. I think yesterday was Depression and Screening Month, a day. We were celebrating that yesterday. So depression is quite common nowadays. But maybe we may not really look into the details of it, because we may just mention a few symptoms. Maybe I pose the question to us just to break the ice of being for talking so much. I think we know some of the symptoms of depression. Maybe someone can just volunteer and give us. They're on the screen already. Yeah, but maybe you could just volunteer and tell us some of the symptoms of depression. Any volunteer or write it on comment section. Anyone? Depression. Some symptoms.
Too much alcohol.
Taking too much alcohol. That's beyond the normal. Any other? Low motivation. Withdrawal. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Kevin. Lack of sleep. Yes. Or increased sleep. Yeah. Any other? Always sad. Yes. Feeling very low. Right. Any other? Stress eating, that's very right. Stress eating, binge eating, or lack of appetite completely. So you're not eating or you're eating too much. Lacking interest in anything. Very, very true. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Carol. Lack of concentration. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jemima. Yeah, thank you. So, emotionally unstable personality disorder. Okay, that can become now advanced. Yeah. So some symptoms of depression: feeling low, feeling hopeless, feeling worthless, loss of interest in activities that you used to enjoy doing a long time ago. So you're no longer motivated. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bertha. Irritable. Yeah. Sometimes we call it when you're irritable, that means you tend to feel like you don't want to be around people anymore, so you isolate yourself. Sometimes you may have suicidal ideations. Yeah, when life feels like there's no hope anymore. And that's why we keep saying we advocate for mental health, people to be able to talk, people to be able to open up, so that you don't I'd rather not ignore that you're having a challenge. Yeah, when you actually having, you need just someone to listen to and you'd feel better. Yeah, so that's depression. Then we look at anxiety. Maybe some symptoms of anxiety that we know. Maybe I just define what anxiety is. So anxiety is that intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. So some maybe some a way that you can be able to tell that you have anxiety, maybe signs and symptoms of anxiety, very fast as we some symptoms of anxiety. When we explain now, anxiety is an intense or excessive persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. Yeah, then how do you tell that you're having anxiety? I think the Mwakenya is already here as well. Anyone volunteer? Okay, well, fast heart rate, when you're about to do something and you feel your heart is really beating fast and you're beginning to sweat and you're tired all the time. Yeah, because of the tension that you're feeling around your muscles, your hands, and it makes you feel very exhausted. As a result, you're sweating. Anxiety can present itself that way. Yeah, and also panic attacks where you're having difficulty in breathing, and it becomes like a panic attack. Panic attack. Yeah. So how do we now cope so that we reduce our remember we said there are causes of stress. There's stress can actually cause us to have a mental illness. So how do we handle it so that we don't find ourselves screaming for agitation? Yeah, lethargy. Thank you so much. So how do we do we prevent, or how do we help ourselves from and reducing the stress from actually progressing to become a very serious issue like a mental illness? Learning how to cope. Yeah, learning how to cope, the way we learn how to cope with stressing factors, the way we learn how to cope now that you can tell, maybe kwetu I have a genetic predisposition to maybe substance use. Maybe you're coming from a line where people have some particular illness mood disorders. What do I do to prevent myself from actually being challenged? Yeah, so coping mechanisms. Yeah, we have a simple one there. We call it the 4 A's, where we are like trying to avoid unnecessary stress. Yeah, after you avoid that unnecessary stress, maybe if it's traffic for you, you tell yourself, I'll wake up earlier and I'd rather be in town earlier than, be in the jam. So you avoid unnecessary stress. Alter the situation. Yeah, what is it that I can do about this situation? What is it that I can change? What is it that I can improve? Yeah, so that you see what resources do you have within you to actually reduce these stressing factors. We have the other A, the third one, which is accepting things that you can change, and those that you cannot, you're able to accept that I cannot change that. So coping with stress, coping with day-to-day life stresses. Yeah, I see also enough rest and sleep. Yeah, that can really help. Yeah, so that your mind relaxes and you're able to focus better. Yes, Neha?
Hello?
Your hand is up. Yes?
Sorry, that was by mistake. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So we are looking at 4 coping mechanisms. Yes. Avoiding social media. That's also a good thing. Avoiding social media can fall under unnecessary stress. Sometimes we are on social media, and the things that we're exposing ourselves to are actually making us more stressed up. So if that can help alter the situation, yeah, what is it that I can do and what is it that I cannot do? Yeah, then it reduces your stress levels. And then as a result, then the ones that you can accept and change, you either maybe adapt to the stressing factor. Like for example, if I use the example of traffic, if you being in traffic really affects the way your day runs, maybe the way you can adapt to it maybe is finding what is it that you can do. Maybe if it's waking up earlier and leaving earlier, so that if you're able to make peace with being earlier to work and reduce your stress, then you've adapted. If you're able to just, I'll be on traffic and still hold my peace, again, you've adapted to that stressor. And there's also something else we call self-care. Like, enough rest and sleep can fall even somewhere under self-care. So let's define what self-care is. So again, we are following the discussion on how we cope. Okay, so self-care is that ability of an individual, a family, or community to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. You remember when we were defining what World Health Organization defines as mental health? Yeah, that ability of a person to recognize their potential, adapt to stressors, and be fruitful and contribute to the community. So self-care is the one where you as an individual, I and you as an individual, or us as a family, or as a community at large, we are able to promote our healthcare by preventing diseases such as mental illnesses and other illnesses that come as a result of stress, and maintain this health, so that even when stresses are coming, you're able to maintain a good say energy, yeah, and cope with maybe an illness that has now come. Okay. Thank you, Elijah. An illness or a disability without necessarily having healthcare providers supporting you through it. So when you need a healthcare, it's not that it's a bad thing, but self-care is that which you yourself can can offer. Maybe I just ask a simple question to us all. Maybe now that you've defined self-care, maybe what would you say, what do you use to adapt to stress? Yeah. Anyone, a volunteer? Exercise, self-care. Thank you very much, Neha. Exercise is a form of self-care. Going to the beach, taking a holiday once in a while, after a few months, just to relax. Very good. Any other? Meditation, yoga, meditation, yes. Self-care, some quiet time, ignoring negative energy. That's very true. Self-care, yeah. Finding ways to relax through meditation, living healthy, happy life, yes. Living healthy, like a good diet, treating yourself out to a very nice meal. And when you're living a positive life, then that means you live a happy life. Yeah. Not that challenges are not there, but you're able to give yourself that self fulfillment. Yeah. So those are some types of self-care. Anyone else with a good one that you are living out? Okay. So then when we talk about self-care, then what does self-care? Personal hygiene, yeah. Knowing yourself and accepting yourself, and also loving yourself more. Because if I'm confident and comfortable with the person that I am able to make good decisions for myself. I'm able to avoid negative and unnecessary stress. That's also good. So then what does self-care entail? I think that's the next slide 22. What does it entail? From just being positive with friends, yeah, that's good. Zero room for negative energy. Very true. Very, very true, and very important. Learning to say no. Zero room for negative energy, yeah, so that you're not finding yourself doing things that you don't want to do, in activities that you don't want to be in anyway. Yeah. Loving yourself more. Thank you, Roseanne. So self-care entails us being comfortable and confident with ourselves. A little exercise, balancing our time, family, work, without overwhelming ourselves. So knowing even our limits, yeah. I think that falls under learning to say no, knowing when it's too much, knowing when it's enough. Taking some nature walks, that I think goes under taking self-care breaks, like going outside. Enough sleep, I think that one had been mentioned somewhere. Eating right and well, yeah. Protecting your space, yeah. Boundaries, knowing your values, knowing your morals, yeah, very true. Solid spiritual life and space. This is actually very nice. Maybe if I ask you, Sir Brasson, maybe just explain for us what it means to have a solid spiritual life and space, if you're okay.
Basically, for me, having a solid spiritual life is whereby you understand yourself and where you are between what the Word of God expects you to do, the expectation towards the Word of God, and how you're supposed to live your life without exhausting yourself. People who tend to harm themselves just to live that godly life, but that's not what God expects of them. And again, being spiritual aware of your position and have that spiritual intimate relationship with your maker without trying to conform with the world's ways and religion. Yes. And growing and learning, growing actually yourself spiritually day by day.
Day by day.
Surrounding yourself with spiritual fathers and mothers, people who you through, and learn to forgive yourself as well.
Learning to forgive
and ask
ourselves.
God to forgive you. Yes.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think when we look at a solid spiritual life, is that acknowledgement of a higher power above us. You remember when we were talking about the 4 A's, altering situation, learning to see what is it that you can change and what you cannot change. You know, us as Africans, we are socialized in a way that if we cannot explain a particular phenomena, science cannot explain that phenomena, and we cannot look at it in another way, then we attribute it to a spiritual side. Nasema huyo ni mashetani, hizo ni nguvu za giza. So having a spiritual foundation really helps you to relieve the baggage, helps you to realize what is it that you can do and what is it that I can put to a higher being. And in our cases, sometimes you've been raised up in church, where we know there is a God who is in heaven, the creator of heaven and earth. So if this is too overwhelming for me, then I can present it to him and he can work miracles for me and change my situation and something like that. Maybe I don't know if there's someone else who has maybe a different understanding of a spiritual life and space that can be able to take us, maybe just explain it to us. Knowing our spiritual purpose in life and acknowledging God's presence in our lives and well-being. So you see, when spirituality works hand in hand with mental health, yeah, it helps improve. Someone wants to say something? Someone who wants to maybe give us another concept to spirituality? Okay. So that's self-care. So self-care can be all round. It can be emotional, physical, spiritual. Okay. And referral system. So you remember when you talk about self-care, we're talking about an individual being able to have this potential to adjust and promote good health, prevent maybe illnesses, or even maintain that good health, or cope with an illness that has come maybe, or a disability without support of a health care provider. So when now this challenge, you're not even self-care is not working, then now we do something we call a referral system. Yeah, I think it's the slide that does not have something. So a referral system structure is when now it has become so challenging for you. Maybe if you're a religious person, you've been having stresses and they tell you go seek help from maybe pastor or our Muslim brothers. Maybe it's you from I don't have the word for their leader, spiritual leader. So once you have tried, maybe some of us who seek traditional help, so maybe like these people from traditional, I think elders or something, and now they are not able to explain the phenomena, then maybe that's becoming a challenge. The self-care you're trying is not working. Now they refer you to someone, or maybe it's at work and you're having challenges that maybe cannot be handled within. Then now they refer you to someone. So this someone can be a hospital. So you go to a hospital, maybe you meet a counselor. Some of us, I know, we work in the health industry, so they come to us, these people, and you assess, because you won't just conclude that they are having anxiety or it's just stress. You have to assess and know. So you assess them. If they meet the criteria, you maybe send them to you listen to the issue and you're thinking you need to see a psychiatrist, you need to see a doctor, you need some tests run. That's the same way we handle it when you're having challenges with your mental health. So once you see a psychiatrist, then they advise, do you need admission? Do you not need admission? For cases where people have been showing with like suicidal ideation. Yes, Sir Brason?
Shalom, let me ask you.
Yes.
How do you deal with someone who do not accept themselves of their, or they have lived to believe whatever they are. There's a pattern whereby maybe you're emotional, you have attitude, and you tend to believe that that's your nature. And that's why some people say, that's the way I am. I was born like that. And yet, the true fact is that they are not true to themselves. How do you deal with such a person who they have not accepted who they are and also sought for help? Because I believe that's an area. Because if I'm not true to myself, to my feelings, to my well-being, even if I see a counselor or a psychiatrist, then it won't be much of help, because first of all, I don't know myself, and I don't accept who I am.
You don't
or the
accept.
situation I'm in.
Okay.
How would you help such a person?
That sounds like a very tricky question, as much as it is easy. I think what we do in therapy is to empower this person, this individual, to be able to trace some of the things that they don't think is a challenge, and actually realize that it's actually a challenge and it's affecting them. Because as a person, I may not be able to do much with someone who's not ready to change. Yeah. So that's why we have therapy. And maybe it's a personality say disorder. So maybe by the help of a psychiatrist and now the psychologist working together, they can be able to formulate maybe a plan so that we're able to bring insight to this person, so that they're able to tell that I have faults, I have things I need to work on, I have things I need to improve on, and something like that. But that can be a very, very challenging case. Very challenging, because self-awareness is very key. But self-awareness with and not being ready for change again can be another challenge. I don't know, maybe someone who feels like they can help us answer this question. Yeah, we can let them also help us, maybe at the comment section. Maybe you can put in that, so that we finish the presentation and then we tackle this question. Is that okay with you, Sir Brason?
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's okay. Okay. I think someone told me it's a sheikh or imam. Yeah, when we were trying to explain where a referral system. Yeah, a referral system where now it's beyond spiritual. Now we need to maybe consider putting you to mental health. Now you've passed through a sheikh or an imam, and they tell you, no, maybe now just go for see as a doctor who is now a psychiatrist. So like a referral system works like that. And I see Charles was trying to tell us to explain the spiritual side of it, where it addresses the soul, the mind, the will, and the emotions. Yeah, that's why we're saying there's a spirituality and mental health can also go very, very hand in hand. And it can only be met by having a heart fellowship through the principles and relationship with God. Where human cannot work, I think even for that situation where someone does not want to change and they say, this is how I am. Where now us as human, we are to make what challenged, we let now the higher being take that charge. Okay. Yeah, so we go back to our referral system structure, where we said now we start maybe from a family where if they are unable to explain this, then they send you to maybe a spiritual leader. If that is not able, then they refer you to like a hospital, where now you're taken through assessments by a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And if there's need for you to get admitted, then they admit you for further management and care. And once you improve, then they discharge you, because you're already empowered to go back to the society and be able to handle your own stressing factors. So I think this, as we come to the end of our discussion today, what are some of the things that you can remember out of all this discussion? Some of the things to remember. Maybe I just pose it to us. Some of the things that you can remember about mental health, about stress, about mental illnesses, about how we can cope, how we can manage. What are some of the things maybe we'd carry with us? Maybe you can put them in the comment section as we also continue to go through this. Yeah, maybe. or maybe someone who wants to bring it up. So some of the things I take home for us is that mental health is not the absence of a disease. So just because you are not sick does not mean that that cannot uh, you cannot does not disqualify you from mental health. And just because you have an issue coping does not mean that necessarily you're sick, so mental health is not the absence of a disease. I don't know if that makes sense. And good mental health is very achievable. Maybe if you realize you have maybe stressing factors and you maybe have anxiety, does not mean you cannot lead a good life. It does not mean just because you've been diagnosed maybe with bipolar does not mean you cannot lead a life that is fulfilling. No, good mental health is very achievable, because we define good mental health as that ability to cope and realize your potential. Yeah. So if you're able to realize your potential, you're able to realize the triggers that lead you to maybe taking substances way too much, then you're able to lead a good life, and your mental health is also improved when you do some good self-care. Okay. When you do some good self-care, it helps you lead a good life, and it impacts how your mental health is. And also for us to realize that mental illness is very common, and it being common, it's treatable, so that we are not hiding ourselves from seeking help, when in real sense we can actually get the help that we need. Maybe spirituality, umeona wamekwambia sasa umepagawa, enda uombewe sijui na nani nani nani, toa sacrifice aina gani. When you come to a hospital, you may realize actually it's an issue that could have been treated. You will be on medication and you will still live a very fulfilling life. Like schizophrenia, psychosis. People lead very, very fulfilling lives despite the fact that they've been diagnosed with illnesses such as that. And that's when now you remember when you're talking about a referral system structure, when now it's beyond what can be explained. Early diagnosis, yeah, if it was detected a long time ago, it could have improved the outcomes of how you have managed yourself, the outcomes of how you're able to prevent illnesses, the outcomes of now maybe of an existing illness. It prevents you from going to the extreme, but you can also manage it and live a fulfilling one. Okay. Physical and mental health go together. Same to spiritual and mental health. They go very hand in hand. Okay. So, points to remember. And I think with that, we come to the end of our discussion. So, our next slide explains the campaign that we are doing, even with these talks, for us to open up. Let us put our mental health first. Let us be able to understand that actually I can talk. That's why we say tufunguke. Let's talk. Let's reduce stigma. Let's be open to discussing these things. I've seen them in my family, and I know maybe it might affect me, but what can I do? Like, let's not shy off from being open about it. So I think the last two slides are not showing. Yeah. So basically, the Tufunguke campaign is for us to be able to open up about mental health, bring these discussions, and reduce the stigma that comes with mental health. I see Elijah is talking about the take home that you're carrying with you is the 4 A's of coping mechanism. I don't know if I put you to the Nini. I put you to test and ask you what are the 4 A's. Elijah, are you able to remind some of us what the 5 minutes? That's okay. Yeah, we have now, as we open up the floor for question for Q&As, maybe Elijah, could you maybe just remind us what the 4 A's are?
Yeah.
Great.
In fact, the main one is accepting the things that I cannot change. That is number one for me. Number two, adapting to the stressors.
Adapting to the stressors.
Altering the situation. And the last, avoiding unnecessary stress.
That's right. Very good. Thank you. You are very at Nini. That one is really your take home. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also opening the floor for question and answers, or maybe something you're picking out of this discussion on mental health, stressing factors, coping mechanisms, mental illness.
There was one question, maybe at the beginning of
At the beginning, yeah.
Yes.
I
Can
don't know if you
one
can
have
echo
a
it.
mental disorder that they ain't aware of owing to their past experiences?
Very good question. I don't know if with the discussion someone is able to answer it. I don't know if someone is able to answer it. It's taking too much. Okay. Or maybe I can just take the question.
Yes, in fact, time.
Okay, that's okay. So yes. You could. You remember when we were talking about some causes of mental illness? We have post-traumatic stress events, which can include adverse childhood experiences, maybe growing up in a very, very strained family or strained economic background, maybe sibling rivalry, growing up seeing your family, these dysfunctional families, or maybe you go through something as a child and it affects the way you react, it affects the way you adapt, and as a result it poses as actually as a mental illness. So it's very, very possible. Very, very possible. I don't know if that answers that question.
Thank you. The other question is asking, is taking too much sugar or sugary food a sign of stress?
That's nice. Sometimes it can, or sometimes it's just a physiological problem. Maybe you're just having very low sugar in your body and your body is craving. Maybe it's dehydration. So some of them can be attributed to another illness that's not necessarily a stressing factor. And can it also be stress? Yeah, it can be stress. Sometimes you realize you craving chocolates and maybe some very nice fried food, and for you it's actually a symptom that you're actually going through a stressing factor that you're not um, aware of. Yeah, so sometimes yes, but not necessarily. Not really. It depends with yourself. Mental health. Is it hereditary? Yeah. I think that brings us back to where we're talking about causes of mental illness. So when you talk about mental health, I think you're talking about illnesses as at large. Yeah, Roseanne? That's a question?
Yes.
That's the question. Mental illness, is it hereditary?
Yeah.
Yeah, we addressed it. Some of the causes, we have genetic and family history. So you can see sometimes when you come in and you're screened after the assessments and they're able to tell, we usually do a genogram. Even substance use, we do a genogram and we are looking at paternal and maternal side, and you realize, there's a history of substance use. There's the dad also has anxiety at some point in his life, or the mom had depression at some point of her life, or there's a grandmother who was diagnosed with bipolar some time back. So yes, mental illness can be hereditary. But does it mean that because you're exposed to it, you will get it? Not necessarily. Yeah. But yeah, it can be hereditary. Some mental illnesses are Neha tried to answer that. Yes, it can be hereditary. is there a time frame to heal from mental health, especially depression, and how do we deal with triggers? Okay, so there is a time frame, because even as we look at the criteria, we look at when you come in, maybe we ask, how long have you been feeling these symptoms of lowlessness, low mood, worthlessness, lack of motivation. Maybe we can look at it previously, maybe if it goes for 2 weeks, and then we say, maybe it was existing, maybe you can date it back to a long time ago. So the same way there's a time frame to determining the criteria of that diagnosis, the same way there can be a time frame for when you heal. But this one is very, it varies. Yeah, it varies, because there are people, sometimes our triggers are environmental, sometimes our triggers are coming from within us. Maybe it is a chemical imbalance. You remember when we talked about chemical imbalances as causes? Maybe it's a chemical imbalance, or maybe it's a life-threatening illness that you've been diagnosed with. So as much as there's a time frame, there are environmental factors that can affect how we heal. So dealing with triggers, this one is personal. Depending with what your trigger was, then you can be able to identify. So for example, if your stressing factor is coming from family, what is it about this family that you can improve? You remember when we were talking about the 4 A's, what is it that I can change about this situation, and what is it that I cannot change? What are the resources I have within me to reduce this depression from becoming very intense or advancing? Yeah, what is it that I can do to prevent myself from or maybe what help do I need to get? Yeah, so also when you do therapy, it helps empower you. Janet, I see your hand. It helps empower you to be able to manage your triggers, and so that even if they show up another time, you can manage them. Yeah, so treatments and time. Treatments. Yeah, Janet, maybe you can give you a chance. Yes, Janet.
Thank you so much for what I'm learning. I really appreciate.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's observed or learned from experience that most of us, should I say women or both, I don't know, but most of us have a problem of acknowledging whether we have a problem. It's like if you accept, or rather I don't know whether if you confess that you have a problem, then it becomes a problem. So we avoid to say we have a problem because we don't want it to actually become a problem. Yet it is gnawing at us and eating at us, eating away at us and making us, I don't know. I have observed that at times if you don't say it out loud that there is an issue here, you can really stay for long. But once you do say it, then it becomes a serious problem. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know whether you have experienced it or how to help someone like that. Because I think especially for women, there's a difficulty in just saying exactly what the problem is because you don't want it to get out of hand. You feel as if once you do let it out, then it will get out of hand.
Okay. I think that's a very, very nice question, and also very practical. From the way we are socialized, we are socialized to be told, mwanamke hakuangi mgonjwa. Ukisema, even from a spiritual side, ati from our confession, then it shall become. So sometimes even the way we've been socialized can really affect our mental health. Yeah. And that's why now we have stigma. So someone tells you you actually have an anxiety problem because you keep talking about it. And maybe for us is just to learn how to balance. Okay, speaking out something does not necessarily mean it will bring forth. Speaking out something can just be you crying out for help. Because I think sometimes we think we are okay and we are not, and then we end up doing very extreme things that we are not able to tell why it happened that way. And it's just because you are afraid of talking about it, because of the notion that if you talk about it, it will actually come forth. So learning the balance, know when you're actually reluctant about doing anything about it that is actually contributing to you getting worse, or you taking or talking about it so much can make you so comfortable that you again do not do anything about it. So learning how to balance that I am not okay, and there is no shame on saying I'm not okay. So now that I'm not okay, what can I do? Maybe go get an assessment and find out, is it actually true, or maybe I'm just thinking it. Yeah. So that you don't struggle with something and realize I've been sick all along and I have been ignorant or maybe in denial about it. We call it denial. Yeah. So knowing the balance so that you're not in denial about it. Okay. RV. Oh, Janet, does that answer the question a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you. RV's hand is up as well.
Okay, my question is,
Yes.
child abuse, can it also be the cause of mental health care? Mental illness.
Adverse childhood experiences
Yeah.
can expose one to a mental illness. That is very true. Being manipulated, being neglected, being abused. Yes, it can cause a mental illness. It can present maybe as anxiety. It can also present as PTSD, a traumatic stress event that happened to this child, and it's affecting their way of coping and adjusting. Yes, it can. It can. So you should be very sensitive about sometimes, even as we look at the way we grew up, you can maybe think, maybe that's why I have mood issues. Like maybe you may find yourself developing like bipolar. Yeah, you may find yourself basically, I think the answer is yes. I'm trying to explain. Yes, it can cause a mental illness. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you indeed very much.
Okay.
And especially for us all. And again, our patience and participation, even in this regard of the stressors that were there, and possibly even the Friday stressors for time, and
Yes,
you have
yes, I
taken
understand.
to be here. And even the participants have kept, in fact, it very interactive. With, of course, a special recognition to Sir Branson with the questions, responses, and the chat here in. Yeah, among many other, of course, even Neha, your colleague there, who has also kept responding and keeping the responses live.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you indeed
Of
so
course,
much.
you're welcome.
We really appreciate. And the last question there, especially because of points of interest, especially during these months of mental health. And I see possibly Neha can give a remark even as we close up this.
Sorry, what kind of remark? Sorry.
There was a question, especially, is there any service that Chilomo Group is offering specifically during this mental health month?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't work at Chiromo Group. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just a participant. But I'm also a counselor, so that's why I'm able to give some responses. But I don't work at Chiromo Group. Sorry.
Wonderful. Now, Shalom, I think, then picks it from Neha. And Neha, in fact, thank you very much, especially for joining our group in your capacity.
Thank you.
Being of help and support, in fact, even to Shalom.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so services that we are offering.
Yes.
That was the
Especially
question.
in commemoration of this month, despite the campaign of Tufunguke. Yes.
Okay. Wait, that one puts me on the hot fire kidogo. Maybe I'm not really in touch if there are any services that we are offering beyond Tufunguke, but basically this Tufunguke campaign has been running for mainly creating awareness, even as we commemorate this World Mental Health, I think on Sunday. I think for us, we are still promoting that Tufunguke campaign, that you can seek our services. We have a toll-free line. At least you can reach out and be connected to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Also I think at an affordable cost. So maybe I may not really answer that question completely. I may have to really confirm if there's anything we are doing for Mental Health Day. But I know there's an activity we're having tomorrow called Mind Fest. Maybe you can join also using our online platforms and maybe get to interact with other people and see what we are doing as we commemorate World Mental Health Day. Yeah, so reach out, toll-free numbers, and also follow us online and activities that we're doing. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much. And to all participants, we in fact come to the closure of this, and we really appreciate also the Chilomo group, and thank you, Shalom, for taking us through, and in fact being of very great help to us as a team and the guests here in. Again, especially that now the mental health day is being commemorated on Huduma Day, at least be of service to yourself and be of service to that other person in terms of taking care and also giving care to the next, of course, person, as we have gone through, even if it becomes a point of referral, then at least we have some points that we can pick and be of assistance. Indeed, thank you once more, unless there is maybe any of us who has a point as we close up. And maybe a parting shot, possibly, and thank you. I see we are a good number and who have kept on until the end of it. So thank you very much. I can see the the parting shots are still coming in, even as now you leave at your own pleasure. And have a good Huduma Day.
A good one to you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. Thank you.